Welcome to the SimplyTrade podcast. Happy New Year, everyone. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I told you guys that we would change things up a little bit, and we have done just that for the first episode of 2025. Hope you got in safely, happy, and all the kinds of things, had a great time, holidays and whatnot. We're recording on Friday, the 3rd, January 3rd, which kind of still feels like a holiday somewhat. It seems like the year isn't starting until Monday because it was such a weird timing of the New Year's. But so you will hear this episode on Monday when the new year practically starts, New Year's resolutions. Guys, I went to the gym and it was empty on Thursday. And that was the first of the year. And usually that is like the most packed day. So I'm thinking, I asked them and they're like, you know what? We thought it was packed too. We thought it was going to be packed. But we're thinking that everyone is starting the year the 6th because it's a Monday. And all the workout programs are also starting the 6th. Anyways, this is not about workouts. This is about trade. And I know you guys heard a little laugh maybe happening on the other side. And that is because I have a special guest who's been on with me a couple of times, Renee Cucurelli. Hi, Renee. How are you?
Hey, Anna. Good. How are you? Doing well.
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you're
Happy
on.
New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too. I always have a good time when Renee's on. You know, she gives valuable information and I'm excited to see what takes she has on these topics we're going to cover today. So there's a few different topics. Like we know, it's kind of the same things that are over and over and over covering in the news right now. Tariffs is on top of the list, and I'm tired of talking about tariffs. I know you guys are. We're waiting for Trump to be in office and to see what he's really going to do, but until then, we can only speculate and do whatever it is. But there's been a few things coming out that are worthy talking about, I would say. And one of those things is the response of Canada. We talked kind of about the security response, how they want to, really secure their borders. And that's been one of the response, and put $1.3 billion in it. We talked about that last time. But now there's also a different response from them that kind of talks on the electricity limitations. So Canada's potential countermeasures are, possibly retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, and which one did they say? They said something about electricity too, like limited or taxing. I'm not sure. I actually don't want to butcher this. I know Renee has more information on this, and that's what we shared the article. And I know you have some thoughts and discussion points on that. So if you want to jump into the response of Canada.
Well, I mean, one of the things, and we know this because you said we've been talking about it ad nauseum, but the Trump administration is considering 25% tariff, right, on Canada. A couple of the things that are going on is restricting exports of critical minerals for electric vehicle batteries, barring American-made alcohol from Ontario's Liquor Control Board, so thereby not importing American-made alcohol, restricting electricity, which I think the 3 states are New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, and I believe the number is 1.5 million households that use that electricity. And then the other was preventing U.S. companies from participating in government procurement processes. And last but not least is this crude oil. More than 50% of our crude oil imported into the U.S. is from Canada. So they could use that also in a retaliatory measure if we implement this 25% tariff. On Canada and Mexico, frankly, both. So, what I like, this is, as we know, we don't know what's going to happen, but shortly we will. But one of the things I like is he's the premier, hang on, let me make sure I have his correct name. bear with me, Premier Doug Ford. He's in Ontario. He wants a call for collaboration and cooperation, which I think is the way to go. I'm kind of anti-trade war. And he says, look, Ford has emphasized the need for cooperation, suggesting that Canada and the U.S. work together to counter all their challenges, whether it's drugs or fentanyl or different reliances that we have on each other. Instead of starting a trade war, he prefers to work together and engage, in this type of process versus damaging trade war, because I don't think the trade war is going to help either of us. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah. And there's a lot of opinions out there, which I don't blame anyone from having opinions, especially because everything that's been said hasn't been implemented. And there's so many thoughts, right? It could go so many ways, and so much could go wrong and so much could go right. No one really knows where to go at this point. And I think we're all kind of anxious. Like, the new year has definitely started, but I think the new year, well, we can decide when it starts for us, right? But a new president will also kind of set in a new year. I mean, there's going to be changes, and it feels like we're just also waiting for that moment for it to just happen. Like, I think the country is just ready, because it seems like we're in this weird stage of, like, transfer where you don't, transitioning. And we just want to see what's going to happen. So looking forward to that. And that is, it's glad that they're giving us their perspectives on what their response will be, if anything will be happening. But it seems like they're already kind of, securing the border. But I think that was already something maybe they wanted to do anyways. I don't know. Because it is important, right?
It is. And, it's funny. We think crude oil only is involved in gasoline, but obviously it's also involved in the manufacturing process of jet oil for your airplane. So this could impact consumers, not just in electricity and energy, but flying, air transportation, you're, at the fuel pump. And what else is interesting is it is in toothpaste and aspirin. I'm not going to buy toothpaste and aspirin anymore. Just kidding. But so,
unless
you're going to
buy the really organic one.
That's what I need. What's a good organic one? So
I don't even know if mine's organic, really. Mine says, I bought it because it looked cool. It says hello on it. So I thought that was cute. I was like, okay, I can leave that on the counter and it'll be cute, because someone will walk into the restroom and it'll say hello. I mean, that's nice. But I have no idea. Now I need to check.
See, the one I've been looking at, there's a few. One's called David's, then there's some with just baking soda.
Yeah, yes.
And then there's some good. But anyway, the interesting thing, normal toothpaste has some crude oil in it. So does aspirin. So this,
will they get more expensive?
What's that?
Possibly will get more expensive if all
more
this
expensive. That's what I was going to say. So your air transport, your gasoline for your car, your medication, toothpaste. I mean, you'd be surprised how impactful this is on the everyday consumer, right? So
actually, some people take aspirin on the daily because it helps with your blood clotting. So, I mean, the last thing America needs is more expensive drugs, because that's already an industry, I think, that people are trying to fix. So, but you know what? Again, speculation, because we don't know what is going to happen, and it's so up in the air. And I'm excited for our episodes right after, he gets in office and he decides to do everything. Oh my God, guys, we might have to have like 5 million emergency trade news just to bring you all of the updates. But let's move on to our next topic. So it's a little bit of a different one. Jumping into the CBP transitioning period that they're having right now, because Troy Miller, a former acting commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, has retired, I think, as of December 17th, I believe. So there's a few key points to consider, and that I kind of want your opinion on, or, your response. And so potentially a shift in CBP's enforcement priorities because every leader will have different priorities. Changes in trade facilitation strategies, which will be affecting the trade industry at the end, and possibly reorganization of CBP's trade operations. That's obviously a sector that really fits into our industry. I do have to say, I did see a tweet. No, not a tweet. I saw something on LinkedIn actually. And someone said, will we ever get another CBP leader that, cares about the trade industry? Something like that. I saw a certain LinkedIn. I was not sure if the person was you and you're listening. Please reach out. I'm butchering your LinkedIn right now. But what do you take from this, and what is your kind of response to this transitioning period for CBP?
Yeah, I mean, what I heard is I think Pete Flores happens to be the senior official performing the duties today, between Troy Miller's retirement and then the Rodney Scott, who the president-elect has nominated to be the new commissioner, which we know that can go a couple ways. Maybe for our listeners, we should talk about just briefly the nomination process. So, Trump will nominate, and then it's referred to the Senate committee, the Finance Senate committee. The committee holds hearings to evaluate his qualifications and suitability for the role. And then if it's approved, it goes to the full Senate vote. So it's kind of a long process to get a person in there. And they have to be, an upstanding individual with the experience. So Rodney Scott is a former law enforcement officer. I guess he served as served as the 24th chief of the United States Border Patrol in 2020. That's just briefly for like a year. So we'll see how that goes. I'm interested. Everything, like you said, when you first got on here, is kind of unknown. And we're in this transition period. But I think all this is dependent upon who is confirmed, right? And who takes office and what their background is, right? What do they know? What are their goals going forward? I think one of the big goals is obviously immigration and border security, like you talked about. And I know you guys have talked about that as well, but I think that's going to be on the path. And then obviously duty revenue for the agency. So I think that's one of the administration's key strategic goals is increasing revenue along with protecting our borders. So I don't know. I thought that Troy Miller did a great job with relationships and ACE. And I'm hoping whoever comes into place next is confirmed will continue with technology, not just focus. There are some strategic initiatives that still need to be worked with Customs and Border Protection.
So do you think in the trade, when you're in the trade industry, do you think that a different leader could have a big, whoever it is, could he have a big effect on the industry itself for the people working in trade and, working?
Yeah. Let's say, for example, their one of their initiatives is increasing revenue. They could increase the number of importers they audit, right? They could increase focused assessments. They could increase QRAs. So that's in addition to increasing tariffs, you can increase your audit pool, right? If you're CBP. So that could definitely impact our importers.
Okay. Yeah. And that's exactly why we kind of wanted to bring this topic. I mean, we don't really have much to say about it again, because it's very up in the air. We know we're going to get someone new, but who it is, we're not exactly 100% sure yet. So again, we'll keep an eye on this. And once it all goes down, we'll have emergency episodes for you, hopefully, so you can listen immediately. Okay.
But at least they're in the know. They kind of have an idea.
Yeah, that is a good start, right? Okay, so we have our last topic, which I also just want to briefly touch on and kind of look for what we can expect in 2025. That is the U.S. trade deficit outlook for 2025, because we know that it has widened. So the trade deficit per se has widened by significant, right?
Well, yeah, you know what? Let's define trade deficit. Some people probably know, but the simple definition is the amount by which a country's imports exceeds the value of exports. So we're importing more than we're exporting. So that means we have a trade deficit.
Which is one of the, I'll have to put Andy in here. Andy hates this. Hates. I mean, to each their own. He is the one, like, that's what we talk about quite a lot, is that importing is exceeding exports in the United States. And we want to export more because everyone wants access to the United States market. And I'm going to repeat his words because those are his exact words. But that is something he's trying to, how do you say, like, equal a little bit more, or maybe obviously they want exports to exceed, really. But
you want a trade surplus. That's what he wants.
Yes. So how can we achieve this? And what do you expect in 2025? I mean, do you think that this is like a goal of ours, of the United States? Do you think it's attainable? Do you think it even makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, we would want a trade surplus, but there are so many things that impact a trade deficit slash surplus. I mean, even how your currency is doing, your cost of your fuel and gas. We talked about crude oil earlier, the economy, geopolitical tensions. In fact, I was reading about this a little bit, and this is super interesting. Everyone has heard of CARM. I think we even did a podcast on that, which is the system in Canada. Yeah, that they use for their customs agency uses, kind of like ACE for us. But CARM in Canada, it had some delays and couldn't process the imports into Canada, right? And so our export numbers were impacted. So, those numbers for October were not, I should just say, counted, right? So it impacted our trade deficit, calculation. So there are so many variables to this number, right? Now you ask me, what do I think will happen? I think what happens, and I've studied a little bit of this over the last 20, 30 years. I've just looked at the numbers. And like I said, they go up and down based not only on our trade policy, but on our economy, war, currency. There's so many things that impact this number that I can't even imagine what will happen in the next 4 years, right? It'll obviously depend on some of our trade policies. Do we implement a protectionism environment and increase tariffs and try to reduce imports that way and thereby getting a trade surplus? But see what happens sometimes when you do that is you have you have tensions, you have retaliatory markets like we talked about in the beginning, and that can impact our economy, which could decrease our exports. So it's kind of like you're playing tug of war. I used to play it when I was young. I lived on a lake and we had all our family, and one family would tug and end up in the water, and the other family would tug and end up and just kept going. Nobody was really winning. You know what I mean? So there's just too many variables, I think, at the moment for us to predict.
Okay. And that makes sense. And that's kind of wanting to lead into just key trade issues to watch in 2025. So I have found a few, or I have, found a few, I guess. So there's the potential shift towards, unilateral measures, meaning economic sanctions and all that stuff, going more in the economic route. The focus on de minimis reform and forced labor issues. I think forced labor will be a big thing to watch as well. We've been watching it more and more in 2024. I think 2025 will continue. And I do think that there will be more audits. I don't know if you call that audits, but I think, right, they would be, or yeah, what, an order, yeah, exactly, an order or something. I guess there will be more measures taken to bring up forced labor and to make sure that forced labor is not happening. What else do I have here? Oh, tightening restrictions on sensitive technologies. Ooh, China will be on the watch list there. And expectations of new tariffs, which we just don't know. But I think those are the few things I have on what to watch in 2025 on what we'll probably be covering. Do you have like 2 things that you're watching right now that you're like, oh, these are things that I'm definitely on the lookout for, or I think we need to, keep an eye on?
I think doing some analysis of your trade program, like how are these things going to impact you? Forced labor, new tariffs. So I would say one of the things, if I were, in an importing exporter environment, was doing some analysis of pending issues so that I could communicate to my upper management, be preparation. You know what I mean? I know a lot of companies are increasing front loading their imports maybe in January and February this year to avoid the threat of tariffs. Yeah. So, those are things that maybe you can add into your analysis. How much can I get in? How much inventory space do I have? But I would say that analyzing threat of tariff, your forced labor, which you covered, those are the important items.
And then maybe I do want to also Europe, like the Europe America relationship, how that will continue and, with a new president and what maybe, the difficulties might be or whatever. Because I know Europe is also facing some challenges. So we'll have to see how things play out and how, economies will be affected or not affected or made better, whatever. I mean, it's kind of exciting actually, because we don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes you have to find the beauty in that.
The unknown, huh?
I
the
think
beauty of the unknown.
Beauty in the unknown. There definitely is. Well, I do want to share a fun fact, and that is that in 2023, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection seized 19,522 shipments containing nearly 23 million items that violated intellectual property rights.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. The estimated retail value of these seized goods was nearly $2.5 billion. Is that insane?
That's awesome.
It's awesome. It's kind of awesome that they found that, right? Like that they were able to discover all these things. And who knows, maybe with a new CBP president, there'll be even more. I mean, we don't know. This is also up in the air. So many possibilities. We just don't know. Maybe less. Who knows? Might be, that might not be good or might be good. I don't know. It's crazy. But really, that is all we have for you for our first episode of 2025, kicking off the year very strong with some good topics that, kind of still were behind in 2024. But from here on out, I think, well, after inauguration, it'll change tremendously. So if you're listening now and you're like, oh, these topics just get old, just stay until end of January and they'll change real quick. So thank you guys so much for listening. You can, again, follow us, subscribe us, talk to us on LinkedIn, talk to us through email. If you want to come on the show, let us know. If you want us or if you want Lalo and Andy or Renee at your conference, let us know and we can make something happen. And that is really all. Thank you so much, Renee, for coming on and sharing your insights.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Of course, always. I'm always glad to have you on the show. And if you have anything to say about the news, since I'm kind of recruiting people to come on the news show and share their perspectives on news and their insights, please reach out to me and we can get to talking. So yeah, that is all I have for you today. I'm hoping you have a great week ahead and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much for joining us. SimplyTrade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor SimplyTrade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com or you can DM us on Twitter at SimplyTradePod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading.